All right, today is Thursday, August the 20th, even though I am pre-recording this, I'll let that out. But August 20th, and we'll have our daily reading in my Seeking Contentment series. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, interview folks and different folks that I know from my life, some from more recent past, some churches I've worked with, some from in the Wayback Machine. I interviewed my father-in-law the other day and mentioned that I've known him about half my life, but the person I'm interviewing today I've known for over half my life, probably I guess 11th grade or something like that. It feels funny to start saying half my life ago as I've gotten older and can think in those terms. But my friend Trent McManus, going to have him on. Let me go ahead and bring him in. He is going to read Psalm 14. Let's see, 3, 2, 1. And there he is. All right.
All right. Well, I'll read
glad you joined us.
Go ahead and read Psalm 14.
Yeah, go ahead and read Psalm 14. Then I'll read Proverbs 14, our daily reading. And then I'll get a little bit further how I know Trent. Some of you I know him. Some of you may not. But we'll give a little further introduction in a bit. So go ahead and read Psalm 14. And then
Psalm 14. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. Their deeds are vile. There is no one who does good. The Lord looks down from heaven on the sons of men to see if there are any who understand and any who seek God. All have turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. Will evildoers never learn? Those who devour my people, men eat bread and do not call on the Lord. There they are, overwhelmed with dread, for God is present in the company of the righteous. You evildoers frustrate the plans of the poor, but the Lord is their refuge. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion. When the Lord restores the fortunes of his people, let Jacob rejoice and Israel be glad.
Proverbs 14. The wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down. Whoever fears the Lord walks uprightly, but those who despise him are devious in their ways. A fool's mouth lashes out with pride, but the lips of the wise protect them. Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes abundant harvest. An honest witness does not deceive, but a false witness pours out lies. The mocker seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge comes easily to the discerning. Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. Fools mock at making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the upright. Each heart knows its own bitterness, and no one else can share its joy. The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright will flourish. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Even in laughter the heart may ache, and rejoicing may end in grief. The faithless will be fully repaid for their ways, and the good rewarded for theirs. The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps. The wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but a fool is hot-headed and yet feels secure. A quick-tempered person does foolish things, and the one who devises evil schemes is hated. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. Evildoers will bow down in the presence of the good, and the wicked at the gates of the righteous. The poor are shunned even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. It is a sin to despise one's neighbor, but blessed is the one who is kind to the needy. Do not those who plot evil go astray, but those who plan what is good find love and faithfulness. All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. The wealth of the wise is their crown, but the folly of fools yields folly. A truthful witness saves lives, but a false witness is deceitful. Whoever fears the Lord has a secure fortress, and for their children it will be a refuge. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, turning a person from the snares of death. A large population is a king's glory, but without subjects, a prince is ruined. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. When calamity comes, the wicked are brought down, but even in death, the righteous seek refuge in God. Wisdom reposes in the heart of the discerning, and even among fools she lets herself be known. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people. A king delights in a wise servant, but a shameful servant arouses his fury. Proverbs 14. All right, get to it. My friend Trent, as I mentioned, haven't had as much contact as may have hoped for in the last number of years. I think the last time we were together was at the Wiggles World in Dallas, Texas.
That's right.
Some years ago. Quite an eventful time, but Trent goes pretty far back. I don't know if I was in 10th or 11th grade when you moved to Benton, somewhere around.
I think you're in 11th grade.
11th grade, somewhere in that range. I was thinking a little bit, but Trent moved in as the youth minister at Highway Church of Christ. And how long were you there? I would
5.5 years.
I was going to say I would guess 6 or 7 years. I couldn't quite remember, but he was there for a formidable time of my life. 11th, 12th grade. I went to Harding for a couple of years and was back and forth a little bit, and then back at UALR where I graduated from and was in contact there at Highway quite a bit. So I had a lot of opportunities to grow there. I remember one of the first. You probably remember this. You mentioned you remember a Devo I did one time. That was interesting with the Chris Christopherson song. I was surprised that you remember that. But I remember we went to Sunday night adult classes, and the very first time I ever taught an adult class, it was in the first. If you're going out of the auditorium now, that whole wing is out of there. But the first room on the right, I remember, and there was so many people. I was probably 20 or so teaching that adult class, and I remember my armpits were sweating, and my shirt was like a wet towel whenever I came out of there. But I remember you're like, "You'll be all right. You'll be all right."
Yeah, it's good for you. Good for
because we needed some more teachers. I remember on Sunday night, and because we did 3 classes, I think, or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it was a growing time for me, and a time that as moving forward, I knew that I wanted to go into ministry. I went to Harding for a couple years as a youth ministry major, and ended up moving back to ULR, and I got a degree in finance. But I knew I wanted to go into ministry, and you were a big part of that through those years, and still involved full time in ministry. I am, so I know you're not as much, but still working for the kingdom. But Trent went on to preach at Hall's Church of Christ for how
15
long?
15 years.
15 years. Okay, I was going to guess about 12 years, but was also the mayor of Halls for some years, 4 years or so, you said?
4 years, yeah.
And then taught a few years at Freed-Hardeman University, and now teaches high school at, what's the name of the school? Is it
Chester County High School?
Chester County. I was thinking that was it, but I wasn't quite sure. But Trent was also my best man at my wedding. And that was an interesting endeavor. I don't know if you remember, you signed on the actual groom line. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Whenever you were signing the marriage, or as a witness, you were signing. I think you signed about half of it, and then you go, "Oh, wait a second. I think this is your line."
Yeah.
and sort of drew a line through it. I remember that.
Yeah, that would have been illegal.
I was like, "Wait, what?" And then you showed it to me, and I was like, "I think that is the wrong line." But she almost married my wife. No, just kidding.
I know, if I hadn't already been married,
But yeah, interesting things that you remember from life as you go through. But yeah, moving to Philippians 4. Do you have any thoughts of those times, or want to share a story or anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, Highway was it was a really special time. I thought we had a really great youth group, and you were a great softball player. We loved to play softball together.
Mm-hmm.
You played left field. You could track down any fly ball anywhere. So that was a lot of fun. But, just all the trips we took to, youth rallies and Kings Island. And I knew you needed to be a minister, and that was one I was pushing hard for you to be in ministry, youth ministry, eventually preaching. I knew it from day one that you needed to be in ministry. So, I was always trying to push you in that direction, and, but anyway, I remember those were just some of the best times, of my life. When I think I was. It's funny, when I first interviewed for the church there, y'all didn't want to hire me. You liked another guy better, but
Oh, really?
it's just
I don't
funny.
remember. I vaguely remember that. I don't remember it
And he
succinctly.
turned it down.
Huh.
And then the elders came back, and they thought y'all thought I was too serious, which
I
is
vaguely
funny.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. But anyway, but it all worked out because, like I said, we needed to be there, and just had a great time together. And then I'm glad I got to go to Texas and see you there. And that's the last time physically we've been together. But the main thing, we've always stayed together because of fantasy baseball, fantasy football.
Yeah, yeah.
And your
Guys from
great team,
Indiana.
named after the church, the Highwaymen.
Yeah, yeah.
And if
Always.
you remember when you and I and your parents and Christy all went to see Johnny Cash in concert.
Yeah. Yes.
One of my favorite things we've done together too. I mean, how many people can say they've seen Johnny Cash in concert?
I know. Yeah, that was not long before he probably quit.
Yeah, it was like 3 months before he quit performing.
Yeah, I knew it was not too
we did
far
that
after
in Memphis, Tennessee. So
at the rodeo, I think it was rodeo. Like
it was a rodeo, yeah.
and then he played afterward or whatever. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was neat.
I remember too, Spring Mill Bible Camp you introduced me to, which I know Rick still is really involved with that. But I remember I don't know if it was called a fall. I think it was called a fall retreat, but it was very cold, and we went up there. And I remember whatever clothes I had. I think I put on clothes when I went to bed because it was so cold. I don't think I've ever been so cold in my life. I remember one morning I woke up to brush my teeth, or maybe it was before I went to bed. I can't remember, one of the two. But I pulled out my toothpaste from the my bag or whatever, and I tried to squeeze it, and literally it was frozen in the tube, and it would not come out of the tube. And I was like, man, this is cold. I'm like, I think that's one of the coldest times I've ever been.
Yeah, Indiana in the fall is not real hot.
So. I remember I put on clothes to get in bed that night, and I had the sleeping bag over my head, closed all the way up, trying to stay warm. That was cold.
But those retreats are great.
Fortunately, the summer camp was not that cold, but yeah, I enjoyed Spring Mill, and enjoyed seeing Rick with the videos and some of the pictures and things like that.
I still go to Spring Mill. I still direct a week of Bible camp, Western Kentucky Youth Camp, but I also go to Spring Mill too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were at a different camp, but I wasn't sure.
All
right, Philippians chapter 4. Like I've been doing these interviews, and I like to catch up with people. Interviewed my cousin the other day. I hadn't talked to him in a while, but catching up with people too, and some stories like that. But I also want to get people's take on Philippians chapter 4 because I started doing these videos. I was laying in bed one night, and thinking in terms of the world we're living in today, and some people are just going nuts, I know in our school district here, one of the neighboring school districts are supposed to start, and one of the teachers tested positive for corona, and like everyone's going nuts. And I'm like, dude, there's like, hundreds of kids that go there and hundreds of teachers, but someone's going to test, positive for corona. It's not the end of the world. Let's just work with it. And people are just going crazy sometimes, and there's people that are sensible at the same time, but the world we're living in, and I thought of Philippians 4:13. People love Philippians 4:13. People put it on there on the walls in the sports. We like sports, the walls of the sports athletic room, and whatever, and rah, we can overcome, and it's all good and well, and I enjoy that verse. But whenever people talk about Philippians 4:13, I always like to ask them, hey, do you know what Philippians 4:11 or 12 says? And they always get a confused look on their face, like, wait, what? What's that all important about? And I said, well, Philippians 4:13 has a lot more push to it whenever you read Philippians 4:11 and 12, because Paul was able to write Philippians 4:13 because he had lived Philippians 4:11 and 12. And I'm going to go ahead and read that and kind of set up. I'll mention too. We were talking earlier, and I haven't mentioned on the video yet, but you teach at the high school I mentioned. Your wife also is connected to the education system. She's a reading specialist. Is that what you said? And kind of helps other teachers, travels around to the campuses and helps other teachers teach. And then got kids in school. Obviously, Gideon, your oldest son, he's going to New York City. Is that right?
He's going to school in New York at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. He's going to be an actor.
In November, yeah. And what's his TikTok again? I know you told me
Curly Daddy 101.
Curly Daddy 101. So all you TikTokers, if you want to see Trent's son Gideon, he's up to over 1 million followers now. I think 1.2 million or 1.3 million.
I know,
or something.
He's something.
So yeah, so you can look him up on there. But he's going to acting school, so you got all these things going on, and you know, and I've interviewed other people with different things going on. I kind of want to set that up, and then I'll read the verses, and then just share a little bit on how you are seeking to be content in the world we're living in today. You got a son going to college, you know, New York City. You got teaching and virus stuff and all those things. Your kids in school, so I'll go ahead and read it, and then give you the floor after that. Paul says, Philippians 4, verse 11, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. So just like Paul says there, you know, I'm sure you've had, and we've all had those low points, had the high points and the in-between points. And like I said, some challenges that we're living through today. So how are the McManuses, Trent McManus, the McManuses seeking to live a content life in the world we live in today? Share a little with us.
Well, I just, I don't know. I've always kind of been a content person. I mean, I think you spend a lot of time around me. I don't think you've ever seen me super high or super low. You know, I kind of just stay, you know, pretty easygoing guy. Go, you know, I just enjoy life. You know, I mean, that's just the way I've always been. And I guess one thing that helps me to be content, I've never been motivated by money. You know, a lot of people, they just chase that dollar. And you know, I've always, when I taught leadership at Freed Hardeman, I did that for 3 years. You know, one thing I try to tell my students is I have a leadership program, and I try to tell them, I said, you know, you've got to do what you love to do, even if you don't like make a lot of money doing it. If you do make money, that's great, but if you don't, that's okay too. But I told them, I said, you've got to do what you love to do, and which is probably, you know, a lot of people would probably think the way I live my life makes no sense, you know, because you know, when I graduated from Indiana University, I had a degree in economics. I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I met my wife, and Christy. Met her at church at Clifton Church of Christ, and worked as a broker. But then I was sitting in my office one day, and I thought, you know, this is just not for me. I need to go be a youth minister. So I guess Christy at that point, we'd only dated about a month. And I called her and I said, I'm going to move to Arkansas and be a youth minister. And I didn't even know where I was going. I didn't even have a job. I just said, I knew a guy at Harding, and I thought, I just believed he would get me a job, you know. And I interviewed at one church, Highway Church of Christ. And like we talked about earlier, they didn't want to hire me at first. They liked the other guy that interviewed better. And then they called me and they said, we want you to come down for a second interview. The first guy turned it down. I'm not going to mention his name, but, you know, if I told you, you'd remember who it is.
Oh,
but anyway, you can't remember who that is?
I'll say you can tell me after the video, maybe.
Yeah, after the video, because you know, but it's funny because I don't want to, you know, because he did turn it down. But anyway, but he was married and had kids. And, you know, here I was, this 23-year-old single guy, you know, and it was fun. I called my dad, and my dad had always told me growing up, you know, you're never serious about anything. You've got to be serious. So I called Dad and said, they don't want to hire me because they think I'm too serious. And he just didn't believe me. He thought it was crazy. So, because I mean, you know me, I'm just kind of, you know, cut up. But so anyway, but you know, but I just believed it was going to work out. And you know, and I tell you what, if you're a youth minister, you know, you don't make a lot of money anyway. You know, youth ministers do. Whew, I mean, it was, but I was single. I didn't need a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I really loved the church there, and I love the youth group, and people were really good to me. So I was happy. I mean, I was content, you know, and I didn't get married till I was 30. And and Christy and I, we dated for 4 years. I was in no hurry to get married. I was happy. But when I got married, I'm happy now. And now we got 4 kids. So, some people say, are you worried about getting and going to New York? I'm not worried at all. I went to a state school, never drank alcohol in my life, never smoked a cigarette, never take drugs in my whole life. It didn't tempt me. Gideon's kind of a lot like I am in that regard. It doesn't even appeal to me, So, there's some good churches in I've been in New York, been to church there. So there's some good churches there that hopefully we'll be able to make good connections once we get there, and get him involved because, he wants to. So some people say, aren't you afraid that he's moving so far away from you? And I'm excited for him. I want my kids to grow up and be independent and follow their dreams and do it. And he wants to be an actor. That's what he wants to do, so. So I fully support him, just like some people want their kids to be doctors, lawyers, or bankers. But all 4 of my kids, I want them to do what they want to do, what makes them happy. And so I'm content, and like I said, but I've always changed. I've never been afraid to change when, if I ever sit around and I'm not happy in a job, then I'm going to change. I went into preaching after that for 15 years, went into politics for 4 years, taught at Freed Hardeman for 3 years. And now it makes no sense to some people, but I've gone into public education. I love it. I love teaching. I love coaching. I coach track and field, basketball, and soccer. And I love sports.
I was surprised. I saw you were a soccer coach. I was a little bit surprised by that, even though that's what Reagan played. So I've learned. I never played a day of soccer in my life. Well, I played in 3rd grade, but it didn't really count almost. But had to learn everything from ground up. But I really enjoyed learning soccer and coaching his team. He just quit playing this year because he's going to concentrate on band and academics. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Even though I always tell people if I wasn't in ministry, I would probably be a middle school teacher and coach. I loved the job I had at Sweeney. I subbed one day a week and at the middle school and high school to meet kids and stuff. But the middle school was the most fun. I mean, like I said, it was just a fun age.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I said I'd probably be a middle school coach if I wasn't in the industry because I just enjoy it.
It is a lot of fun, I mean, of course, it's high school basketball. It's high school basketball, high school track field, but it's junior high soccer, and I love it. I love it. Girls, we had of course we practice every day, and that's another thing too. I played we went undefeated last year, and I told the girls, I said, well, one reason why we're so good is because we practice all the time. But I like it.
Yeah.
And I told them, said, if I ever got to the point where I didn't like it, then I wouldn't do it anymore. To me, to be content, you've got to enjoy what you do. And then, and I, like right now I'm teaching this class on career development. I teach all the high school students, don't spend your whole life doing something you hate, and if you need to change, then change, and the truth is, before I became a youth minister, which is one reason why I wanted you to be a youth minister, is because you were already doing the work. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you already had that mindset. You were already teaching. You were already, really living the life of a youth minister. You just didn't have the job.
Yeah,
before I became a youth minister, well, I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but I mean, I'd probably baptized 60, 70 people, and I just didn't all of a sudden magically become spiritual or, But what I've always tried to do, I've always tried to pick people out who I thought were already, on that train of thought. And, you were the first one. You were the first one that I wanted. And then, and Goose, you remember Goose? Goose is doing fantastic. He's leading the youth at the church I grew up at in Indiana.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
And
that. I knew that.
they finally have hired a full-time youth minister, but he was doing it in the interim at their Northside Church of Christ in Jeffersonville.
Oh, okay.
And Goose is just doing fantastic. Graduated from Freed Hardeman, and I always wanted to kind of push him along, and John Rogers,
Mm,
I John, John kind of took my place, and not kind of took my place, he did take my place, and
yeah.
I was always proud of that. That these spiritual people were they were all in our youth group that
Mm,
we got together, and I think if you identify those people and encourage them to go in that direction, of course I know John's an engineer now and all that,
mm,
but he was very spiritually minded, and Heather did a great job leading him to Christ. And
mm,
I was just really proud of our youth group and all the great things that they've been able to accomplish, and at a small little church. We weren't
mm,
that big, 120, 140 people,
mm,
depending on over 5.5 years, we kind of range in that 120 to 160,
mm,
kind of in and out there. But and in halls, when I went to halls, I've got several people who are youth ministers that came out of there, and that's I've always tried to encourage people, you know, to do what they love to do, and like I said, when you see potential in people, to really try to help them get in that, go in that direction,
mm.
which I'm proud of you, of course.
Well,
So
thank you. What other secrets of contentment? Anything else? Don't chase the dollar. Do what you love doing.
yeah,
Anything else come to mind? Kind of.
well, I mean, obviously, if you live a Christian life, it's just like yesterday. Yesterday, I preached a funeral of a lady that was 90 years old, and I had been her preacher for 15 years in halls, and her
Mm,
family called me, and um, it was really neat to preach her funeral because she was such a godly person.
mm.
She'd been married for 74 years. She was 90 years old. Her husband's still alive, 97,
Wow.
and just beautiful Christian lady. And uh, but when somebody like that dies, it's not sad, really.
Mm,
So I mean, obviously, the key to being content too is that you live the Christian life, and that no matter what happens, everything's going to be okay.
mm,
If I go into school every day and people ask, "Are you afraid of getting coronavirus? You're around all these kids and all these people," and I'm not worried about it. You know,
mm,
I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen to me?
mm.
You know, I mean, I don't think anything is going to happen to me, but if it did, I mean, I'll have eternal life. I don't have
Yeah,
to
that's
worry about that.
the older I get. That's
So
what people will say. Lord Jesus, come. Kind of that. I heard that when I was a kid, and I'm like, what do you mean? And the older I get, the more I realize I'm like, hey, I'm ready for the Lord to come. If
oh
today's the
yeah,
day or
be great.
tomorrow's the day, I'm like, or if it's the end of my life, I mean, you'll uh, your family may suffer a bit in the sense of not having you there to help raise your kids, your wife raise your kids, or whatever. But in the same breath, I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go be with the Lord if it's today or tomorrow or next week or next 20 years from now or whatever. And I think contentment is a lot of that too. Like you said, people, or I mentioned earlier, people freaking. I'm sure there are people freaking out there if one
Oh
teacher
yeah.
get one teacher tests positive, then it's end of the school year, or whatever, from some people's perspective. But yeah, that contentment definitely helps to be able to do your job, in your sense of teaching kids there at school and showing up and doing your job and being able to be comfortable with whatever comes.
Well,
Definitely.
and you have opportunities. I mean, I've had kids, ask me if they could go to church with me, and I mean, you can be a good example, and
Mm,
especially since I had the opportunity in public school to teach Bible history and
mm,
New and Old Testament Bible history.
mm,
So that kind of gives me a leg up on probably some other teachers, and but and I coach, and they know that I don't use profanity. They notice all
mm,
that stuff,
mm,
and so pretty soon, they start kind of wanting to
Asking
be
questions.
around you, and you know,
Asking questions, yeah, whatever, yeah.
I mean, just like Goose, you know, when we converted Goose, um, uh, you know, a big part. Well, not Goose. Goose came to Christy's class, and Christy did a great job teaching Goose. But
Mm,
we had this guy who, I don't know. Do you know Cody Perry? Do you remember him from Halls?
no, don't think so.
Well, anyway, Cody is a youth minister now in Alabama, and
Mm,
uh, that's how we met him. Is he was in Christy's third grade class at school, and she
mm,
asked him, could she go to church with him? You know, and so, you know, all these people, you know, um, and I've always been a big believer talking about being content. I don't ever think I'm going to be a great person, you know, but I think that I'm going to have a hand in other people's greatness. You know what I'm saying?
mm.
So I'm content with that. You know, I don't feel like I have to be, you know, super
Superman,
famous or super rich or any of those things, you know, and I think that, and, you know, and I was thinking about this the other day, people people who should be content aren't,
mm.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's in
you
large
know,
measure, yeah.
they've got all the money, they've got all the
I'm
fame, and
preach
they're
preach
still
remembrance,
miserable.
yeah, kind of
You know, a lot of these people, I mean, they, you know, they commit suicide, and you see all these famous actors, and they end up either
crazy, yeah, half crazy.
depressed and on medication all the time, and or committing suicide, and you think, what's wrong, you know, and you know, they don't have godliness, which is what leads to contentment.
And then you see the simple people, like you said, the little 90-year-old lady or however old, people like that that have the simple kind of simple life and they're content and content with what they have. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. Coming up on about 30 minutes or so. Thanks for sharing with us. You want to close us with a prayer here as
Yeah.
we close out? All right.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everything you give us. Thank you for giving us this time to talk about contentment. And thank you so much for Michael and the good work that he does. And thank you for the life that he's living. And thank you so much for all the people that have added richness to our lives and over the years, and that we got to spend a little bit of time even reflecting on them and the importance that they played in our life. And but mostly we want to thank you for your son Jesus, and thank you for the hope that you give us, that can give us the contentment that we need, that everything's going to be okay, uh, no matter what. It's in Jesus' name I ask for this, all these things. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, thanks for talking
Oh,
about
you're welcome.
seeking contentment in the world we live in today. Hopefully, people can get some nuggets as interview these different folks and share some of these ideas. So, all right. Well, have a good day, Trent. Thanks for
I
hanging out.
plan on it, and I'll see you sometime probably on the fantasy baseball, which I think you're killing me right now, but that's okay. That's, I
All
don't
right.
know. I've had all these injuries so on my
Yeah.
fantasy team, but it'll be okay.
All right.
Maybe next year when it's a